Hello guys and welcome back to another video. Today we will be doing part 4 on our series of checkmating patterns. So this will be the last part and we will be covering the blind swine mate, the hook mate, opera mate and Morphy's mate. So by no means these are like all the checkmating patterns that exist, but by the end of this part we would have covered basically all the checkmating patterns that you need to know. So we will start with the first one, which is the blind swine mate. So this one is a pattern that involves checkmating with two rooks. So you use the two rooks to checkmate the king on adjacent files. So here I start with this check. After the king moves, now I wanna go rook to d7 checkmate, but the king has an escape. So here I start by this move, check, only way to defend, to go f6 or knight to f6 as well. But they are the same. I have rook to d7 checkmate. So this is the pattern that you need to remember. Two rooks and they are checkmating the king on adjacent files. Okay, so now we will go to the second puzzle. Now try to pause the video and try to find the same pattern that we just saw. So here I start with this check, king moves, I have this check with the pawn, king goes back, and now it's checkmate. The two rooks and they are delivering checkmate on adjacent files. Okay, let's move to the third one. Now this is a really pretty puzzle. So it involves a little bit of calculation and you have to sacrifice some material. So here I start with the sacrificing the queen. After the bishop takes, I take. King only have one escaping square. And now this is the move. I go pawn to c5 check. And after white blocks, this is our pattern with the two rooks. Okay, now we move to the second checkmating pattern, which is called the hook mate. So the hook mate, it involves a checkmating pattern with a rook and a knight, and the knight is usually supported by a pawn. So here, it's kind of clear that the move here is knight to g6. Now this comes with a discovered check. Now if the king moves here, this is the mating pattern. We check in the corner, knight and rook are checkmating, and black cannot check the knight because it is supported by a pawn. And if king to f7, it's the same thing, it's check. And it is a mate. Okay, so now we go to the second example and try to look for the same pattern. Again, here I see that I have this check. Now if king moves here, it's checkmate. And again, king f7, and this is checkmate. And this knight is taking this square from king. The third one, now this one, we have to sacrifice again some material. I start with queen take. After king takes, we have this check. King moves back, and this is checkmate. Now our third mating pattern, it involves a checkmate with a rook and a bishop. So usually the rook is the one that delivers checkmate in this opera mate, and it's supported by a bishop. So here I start with this check. After the king moves, this is checkmate. So this is the pattern. You checkmate with a rook and it is supported by a bishop. So this is a basic example, but we're going to see more complicated ones. So here I want to checkmate with a rook and a bishop. So with this diagonal, I can see that the checkmate is probably going to happen here. But the knight is on the way, so I have to deflect this knight. So I start with this check with the queen. Black cannot take with the king because it's supported by the bishop. And after he takes with the knight, this is checkmate. The rook is checking, guarding these two squares, and it is supported by a bishop. Okay, let's move to the last example. Now I can see again that the king is blocked, cannot go to these two squares. And I want to check here with my rooks so I can deliver checkmate. But this rook is on the way, so I take. After the king takes, this is checkmate again. The rook taking this square, supported by the bishop, and all these squares are covered. Now the fourth mating pattern is called Morphy's Mate. So Morphy's Mate is when you checkmate with a bishop, but already the rook covers all the escaping squares. So here I want to checkmate with this bishop. So first it starts with this move, and this is check, and the bishop is taking away this square. So the king must go to the corner, and now this is checkmate. So the bishop delivers checkmate, and the rook is cutting away all the escaping squares from the king. So let's see the second example. Now this is a more complicated one. So here I have to open up this file. So I start with this check, and then black must take. Otherwise, if black doesn't take and moves his king, this is another type of mate, but it's not the one that we are interested in. So after this check, black takes. Now the idea is that I want to drive the king to the corner, so I start with this check. Well, here black can sacrifice the bishop. I just take. After the king moves, this is checkmate. So this is the pattern. The rook cuts away the black king, and the bishop delivers checkmate. Okay, now we move to the last example. So here I start with this check. All these squares are taken, so the white king must move, and then I check. He stops with the pawn, and this is checkmate. So the rook is taking away all these squares, and bishop delivers checkmate. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something from it. If you like this content, please subscribe to my channel, and see you in the next video. Bye bye.